Hey there, Pedro. We're going to start in just a minute or two, give folks some time to log on.
Sounds good. Nice to see you, Lori.
Good to see you. Okay, I think we'll get started. I think Javier will be joining us shortly. I know he was wrapping up something at school and will pop in. But one of the features that we want to be able to show tonight, in addition to some general navigation around the platform, is a new feature that is actually being added through with our production team right now, and that is Google Classroom integration. Pedro, are you planning to use Google Classroom?
Great question. Last year we had quite a challenge using the Google Classroom in tandem with Magnitude. This year, it'll likely be a component. We have two teachers here in our middle school who are wanting to conduct, the entire program in their classroom. So that will be an added challenge.
Okay. All right, well, I'm going to demonstrate some of those features of some changes that have been made from last year to this year to make it easier to integrate with Google Classroom and to do assignments that way. And then even just setting up the classes will be easier. So let's go ahead and get started. And so I'm going to be demonstrating and showing what we call on the development site. So it is kind of our mock site that we use to test things. Because just like with our students and engineering practices, we have to really test things out before it works. So we'll see the development site right now. So it's going to look just slightly different in terms of the classroom, the ExoLab lessons are not all loaded in the development site, but it'll show you it's the same thing. All right, so the first thing you would do is go to the login. Classroom.magnitude.io is where you would log in. And we use our single sign-on of coming in with Google. And so it's, let me share my screen with you. 1 second. Okay, here we go. So we use our single sign-in going in through Google Classroom or through Google, and we get access to our platform. Now, the first thing that you will want to do is come up here to your teacher profile under My Account. And this is where you're going to select that you want to use the feature for Google Classroom integration. You click on that, and then you hit the toggle button to turn it on. Confirm. Yes, this now gives permissions. So I'm going to connect it to the account that is connected to my Google Classroom account. I know many of us are managing a lot of email addresses, so make sure you pick the right one that matches for your Google Classroom. So over here in my Google account, I've already created some test classes in my Google Classroom. So I have a test class that I already set up. So you probably are going to already have a class set up where you're using it with students and making assignments. And so if they have already joined over here, they'll show up in the people list. And then, so you say you've already got this at least set up with a class code and an initial setup. So you want to do that. And then over here, back in the Magnitude platform, we'll go down first to classes. And let's say that, let me go in real quick and let me see if I unlinked this one. Yeah, okay. So I already have created a test class. And so a class to set it up is really simple. You just hit create class and you fill out the little tabs and then you hit save. So that's very simple to create a class on the Magnitude side. And that's just, then you'll end up here with this page that has that test class. Now, normally in the past, you would have given the students this sign up URL and this class code to join. But now we can link to Google Classroom right here from the class page. And so we would do that by then selecting from the courses that we have active. I hit next. And now my test class over here in Google Classroom is connected to my Magnitude class. And it will automatically sync students for you. All you have to do is hit the sync students button. Are you sure you want to do it? Yes. And they will show up in your student list. So this is a new class that I have set up just for test purposes. Therefore, we don't have anyone listed. But let's say, even if somebody joins your class a few days after you've set things up, once they join your Google Classroom, you would just come back here and hit sync students and they will appear. So it's very simple to get your class populated when you have Google Classroom linked. The next feature that we'll show is assigning a lesson. So we'll go to our lesson library and into ExoLab. So these are just mock lessons that we created as tests. So we'll just do another test lesson. It'll bring it up. We'll go to assign lesson, and it's going to give you the choice to assign to just the Magnitude class or to assign it through Google Classroom. So we'll hit assign to Google Classroom. We'll again select and match up which class it is that we're making the assignment to. So especially those middle school or high school teachers that often have multiple active classes throughout the day, you'll want to have an individual class on the Magnitude platform for each of your courses that you have in Google Classroom. You do not want to try to do one big master class on the Magnitude platform. It'll get too confusing. The system wants to match one class to your Google class. So we select that it's our test class. I hit next, and then you're going to see, just like you do in Google Classroom, on how to give an assignment, the title of the assignment, the points. If you want to make it ungraded, you can just check that box. You give any directions, complete the assignment. Okay, you can change the start date and the due date for it, and then you hit assign. And then we'll come over here to our test class. And here it is. Another test, another lesson test has been set up. So let's say, oh, I forgot something in the directions. I can now edit that lesson assignment, add more instructions. And then I also find it really useful when I was teaching that I would always assign a topic to my assignments in Google Classroom just to keep them organized. So if I create an ExoLab one as a topic and then I hit save, and so you're able to amend it here. And then on the student side, they will see this in their classwork and on their stream, and they'll be able to click on the link to get back to the Magnitude site. They will need to log in using their single sign-on. and they should not have a problem because they will already have been, the system will have already been syncing them to your class. They don't even have to put in any kind of join code or anything. They'll already be there, and the system will recognize them as part of your classroom. And then when they go through and do the lesson as a student, and they finish the lesson and they complete it, they'll hit submit, just like they do in Google, and it'll submit the assignment for them. So they don't have to bounce back and forth and try to come back into Google Classroom and hit submit. Once they do it in Magnitude, finish it, and it's done. Now, we have had some good feedback from teachers about, different case scenarios that come up when you might need to reassign a lesson to a student, or they didn't follow the directions fully, maybe on a CER open response question, on an essay question, and they need to add more to it. So these are some features that we are planning to add after initial launch. So some of those will be in place, and then some of them are coming to be able to open assignments back up and make changes. But those features will be controlled by the teacher if you want to reopen things. So as we get this launched on the platform and our teachers using it, I'm sure there'll be some great suggestions on other ways that we can improve the Google Classroom integration and have that feedback back and forth. Those will be useful. So please let us know if you have ideas on Google Classroom integration. The experiments will work just the same way. Those will not show up in Google Classroom. So the experiment pages it will still be independent and on the Magnitude platform of when you're viewing the ExoLab dashboard with the experiment, the ground versus flight. So that they will definitely still have to come through the platform to access. Let's see. Hi, Tony. Thanks for joining us. Those are the main features that I think will cover most of the users for initial setup and integration with Google. Last week, we demonstrated if you are not using Google, then you will assign lessons similar, but you'll go through, and when you hit assign lesson, you'll just assign to a Magnitude class. And you can select from any of them. Again, change the due dates if you wish, and then assign lesson. So, and then let's see, cloning a lesson, very easy. If you are want to make changes to it, oh, that's a prior one. We'll use this one. We'll clone it. We'll give it a new name. I changed my lesson up. Let's say I wanted to add videos to it, added features to it, and now this lesson shows up under my lessons. So here it is, new lesson PD session. And again, I can assign it in a very similar way to the Google Classroom. Again, matching my classes up, it's linked, that's confirmed. I hit next, all looks good, do the work, and my dates are good. And then we'll, oh, my bar's in the way. And we'll hit assign. And now that work shows up. So here in your Magnitude class, you'll see all the different assigned lessons. You can click on student notes of when they've recorded notes into the section, as well as their student work will show up here. So you will have to come back to the Magnitude platform to view their responses to any of the essay or multiple choice questions. But we're hoping that these features will make it easier, especially to set up the classes and to manage assignments, because we know that as over this last year, many teachers started using Google Classroom as an organizational tool for students to keep track of what was due and assigned to them. And now with this feature of integration, that should make that job a little bit easier. So, are there any, am I missing anything, Tony or Pedro? Do you have any questions?
So I unmuted myself like 3 or 4 times just then. So I don't have any specific questions about that per se. I think I applaud you for the Google Classroom integration. I think that you are correct in saying that it will make life easier for a lot of teachers and students as well. You know, this last year they had to go from one email address to another and then check into their classroom sometimes, and it was a little difficult. So I'm really grateful for this integration. Just a couple of questions with respect to how our team can expect to kind of pull this off this school year. As I said, we have 2 6th grade teachers who are on board and want to do this, and talking to the district to go ahead and get everything paid for. Our school year starts September 1st, or is it 2nd? I'm not sure if it's the 1st or the 2nd, but that's, you know, a couple days after the launch. So I'm wondering about ideas and how we sync up. I mean, it actually provides a really cool opportunity to show the rocket launch and then tie that in with the beginning of the school year and the excitement of, you know, a new endeavor and so forth. But I'm wondering in terms of syncing the plant growth and the growth chambers to what's going on station, if you have any insight on that.
Sure. So the timing will be just fine. With that rocket launch, it's scheduled for Saturday, August 28th at 3:37 a.m. So it's all, you know, a weekend anyway. And so it does take a couple of days, a day or two, in order for the cargo Dragon to dock to the ISS. And then we have to wait for the astronauts to unload and then power us up. And so we're expecting for our mission participants and educators to power up the EXO Lab the beginning of September anyway. So anytime during that first week of school, wow, how exciting is that? Like the kids walk into the classroom and like the first thing you say to them is, because normally like you're going through a syllabus and it's like, this is boring. Like, no, this is going to be, you walk into the classroom and it's like, look, we're going to space like today, like we launched and we're doing this. This is going to be awesome. And here's what we're going to do. And like, are you ready? Let's go. And so it will be this immediate energy that the kids will be able to, they'll be like shocked, right? All their other teachers are going over a syllabus and they're not, like they're getting their hands in with plants immediately and kind of, it's like, wow, this is going on. But the teachers can definitely spread the lessons out. So don't feel like you have to rush in, but you know, when we get the EXO Labs powered up and matched to the station within that first week of September, that timing is going to be just fine. And then they can assign lessons, and it's very flexible with the lesson library this year. Here, I can share the screen as well. Let me log in to the other site. And I'll show the lesson library that we've organized this year. Oh. Tony, can you turn on my participant sharing? Somehow I have now not allowed to share. You denied me.
All right, try it now.
Okay, here we go. All right.
And I didn't know I was on mute.
Oh, okay. So here in the lesson library this year, we have not numbered the lessons because it's the beginning of the school year. We want teachers to have great flexibility in how they work through these lessons, and assigning a few of them or all of them. The order is totally up to you. Now, I know from teaching science in middle school and high school, I often start with the scientific method and scientific inquiry, experimental design. So you can jump right into that with the experimental design lesson and talk about the variables, how to write a scientific question, looking at some of the features of the ExoLab as an example, what are controls, how to write a hypothesis. So that's definitely one of the lessons I would recommend for the beginning of the school year. And then the other really important one to get started with is going to be the making observations lesson, because that's going to walk through how we're going to keep track of what's happening throughout the experiment. And we've developed field journal pages this time for students to fill out as they're making observation as to what's happening with the seeds in the ExoLab. So they'll note time of germination, or when the first trifoil appears, and then when nodulation appears. So the lessons are in a revised shape for ExoLab 9, building off the success of ExoLab 8. And we typically have the K-2 lessons on the left column, and then 3 to 5, and then 6 to 8, and then 9 to 12 all the way on the right. And that's generally how they're organized. They may get a little shuffled when we add new lessons, and when you get down to the very bottom, there's not an exact number for each grade band. But it's very flexible in what you choose to work on with your students this year. And you can stretch it out. We'll be on station for the entire month of September. And then even the return flight after we're back, there'll be opportunity for post-flight science and continued learning. And we'll have live sessions every Friday is our plan for about 20 to 25 minutes to talk about what's happening to our experiment on station. And so we'll also have those links and updates here in the lesson library. Does that help, Pedro?
That is very helpful. Thank you so much. With respect to in previous years, I recall that the lessons were available in multiple languages. Is that still a feature, or has that gone away pretty much?
The ExoLab 9 lessons have not been translated into other languages this year. That is a very time and labor intensive task. And so it's not something we were able to support this time directly through the platform, but we know that there are educators who are multilingual and may have the ability to do that. And so hopefully if you have students who speak another language, you'll be able to accommodate them or help them translate. I know even Google Translate can be a useful tool. But right now, the lessons, given the extent of the library and the expansion that we've made, we just couldn't keep up the translation into all the different languages this time.
Excellent. Yeah, I realize that it's very labor intensive, so I appreciate that. Okay, cool.
Great, thank you. Tony, did you have anything else we should add about the lessons? You know what, one thing more I'll show, just since we are recording this and it's related to the platform, is let me show how to set up the experiment page. So I'll quickly show that as well, just as a nice refresher. If you've got your ExoLab, we covered the hardware lesson earlier today in a different PD session. So let's say you've got your tubes ready to go with the agar and the seeds, and it's powered up, connected to the Wi-Fi, and now you want to start an experiment. So I'll just end this one to show how to set one up. Everybody can see my screen, hopefully. You go to classes is where you will find the start experiment page. And so here I will start the experiment. There will be an option for ExoLab 9 ISS, and that's the one we will choose when we're on station. Here we've got a pre-flight one where we're doing ground trials, so I'll pick that one for now. I want my start date as today. I'll keep it as a public. Sometimes we use Petri plates, but this time we are going to use the two dual tubes in the experiment. You have the option of the different colored lights, red, blue, green, magenta, and white. For this experiment, I believe we are going to be running magenta. For the light intensity, I keep it at 10. If your lab tends to run hot, then you can back off that intensity. We really want to be strong and luminant. And then our photo period is based on 24 hours. So when we set it at 16, that means that the lights will be on for 16 hours and it'll be dark for 8 hours. And you can also use your ExoLab cover that goes right over the lab if you don't want any other ambient light to be reaching your ExoLab. And then we just hit Save Experiment. And then it's going to start recording data and taking images. And we go here to compare to other experiments that have been started to match this one. So here in our ground trials over the last few months, we can see the number of labs that have been powered up and the temperature variance, humidity variance. It is summertime and some people are running their homes nice and cool, and you can see mine here in Florida tends to run nice and hot. So that's fun to be able to compare data of all the EXO labs. So that's another feature of the platform that's important to know how to do and get set up right at the beginning. All right. Hi, Javier.
Hey, Lori, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm fine. Finishing with the first day of school with meet the teacher.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you've met your second graders.
Yeah, finally, a lot of them. Some of them are familiar faces. Some of them are new. So, you know, that's gonna be interesting this year.
Well, good. Well, I've walked through on the platform how we've done some Google integration through our development site that's now in production and demonstrated some of the lessons, but I'll give you a couple minutes if you want to share anything about that's specific to the K-2 lessons, since you are the primary author of those. It's important for those younger elementary students to be supported, and Javier's done a great job of really making these friendly to those who are just starting out their astrobiology careers as 5- and 6-year-olds. So
yeah. All right, Lori. So you want me to start or wait a little
bit?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead and start. Do
you have the PD session handy? What is that, the slideshow?
Yeah, give me just 1 second.
Let me see if I have it somewhere.
Let's see.
Where are you from, Pedro?
Well, I live in Maine, but I trace my roots to the Caribbean.
Oh, cool.
Really?
Cool.
Let's see. I have like 8 versions of this slideshow. Let's see. Which one did we put in your slides with the elementary, right?
I got it.
Here.
Sorry.
Okay. You got it?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Let me start. I'll share my screen now. Let me know you can see my
Yes, we can.
slideshow. Okay, so welcome everybody on this new professional development session. We're very excited that you joined today. Today we're going to be speaking about the education experience for K to second grade, but this curriculum is based on the premise that astrobotany is something that is very, let's say, sometimes it's in a black box and people are afraid to it. And my challenge as a kindergarten teacher back then was how I could manage all of this information and put it in kid words, so that way the students and the staff won't be feel threatened, because this is very abstract for, especially for small kids. So I came out with the idea of putting all of this information in some bits and pieces that can be easy to digest for everybody in the ExoLab experience. So our leadership team is right here, is with Ted, Tony, Lori, and Michael. And we are the co-investigators and curriculum developers all around the world, from Japan to Texas, to Florida, to Canada. So this is a wonderful, wonderful team that has been working very, very hard and actually putting all their experience and their knowledge to try to digest this new thing for the students. Now,
Javier, I don't think your slides are advancing. We're still seeing slide 1.
okay.
Maybe hit present and let's see if it'll advance.
Can you see the slides advancing?
No, we see still all your tabs open at the top. Maybe stop and then reshare.
Okay, I'll try to do that.
There we go. Now we see the
All right.
PI team, and now it says implementation.
Perfect. Okay, so as far as of the implementation process, we have basically several more varieties. One of them is the standalone. That's for specifically for, let's say, museums, or also for libraries. And we have also the curriculum, and this fully integrated across the challenge. And also we have this lesson library that you were showing that earlier, right, Lori?
Yes, I showed how it was organized.
Okay, so as part of my experience running this curriculum with kindergarten students, it was wonderful the way the students were responding to it, because you can see even growth of the students' technical skills in reading and writing skills. So the way I did it is I designed 11 lessons for the kids, and the students were at the beginning, they were copying out of the whiteboard, because that's one part of their journal, of their journey as writers. So the first thing that they usually do is try to copy from the whiteboard, and eventually, as the year passed by, the students were actually pulling some information out of their heads so they can write using their own vocabulary, their own words, trying to share with other students what they were experiencing, and putting those in paper and pencil. That was a very interesting idea, because our platform is usually for older kids that they can type. But in our case, our students can't even grab the pencil at the beginning of the year. So that was something that I thought and I put in place for the implementation. So you can see also the growth of the student skills at the beginning of the year, in the middle, and in the end, and everything stands in this series of lessons that you can print all from the beginning to the end of the mission. And you can also pick and choose which are the ones that you're going to be working with the students. Also, the students were having access to the platform, and we were coordinating this project with other students as well in different classrooms in the same school and another classroom in across the district. So the way I did it is I was presenting a lesson, and then right in the middle, the students have the time to go and do their observations, write their experiences, or read a book that was related to it about plants and stuff, and they were getting some information to put all the bits and pieces into their journal. So this was very interesting, especially for us in kindergarten. So we have this curriculum divided in instructional blocks, which could be between 20 and 30 minutes that are instructional, and then they can have hands-on skills for them. For Texas, and since we're pushing a lot in literacy, we're taking away sometimes the lab, you know, the hands-on activities for the students, and this is just one way for us to try to push this lab again into their hands, especially since they're new to the world, they don't have a lot of experience, and this is a wonderful experience for them. So these are some of the lessons that we have. We have some lessons that are core, we have support, and we have extension. And all of those lessons that I designed for K to second grade are here in a form of a roadmap. I decided to create this roadmap because when kindergarten students and, you know, elementary as well, they were gonna try to travel to some place, they don't have the notion of distance. That's what they are asking all the time. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And this is one way that we can eliminate that sense of not knowing where you're going to go next. And this roadmap helps you and help the teachers to understand where are the stepping stones since we launched the rocket and the mission up until we present the data for sharing to the other students or our colleagues. So this is a roadmap for try to alleviate a little bit that part of tension of the teachers and students. Right now, we're going to be showing some of the lessons that were developed. Let me see if I can share them. Okay, can you see my Magnitude website? Okay, so
Yes.
this is our Magnitude website platform, and everything is integrated. You can pull the students and you can share this class to your students. The way I did it with the students, I was trying to piloting this part because the students don't have sometimes the skills to go and try to copy what you're doing on their computers, and sometimes they felt left behind. And over here we have in the lesson library the ExoLab lessons, and this is the age band that we're going to be working with today is the K2 second lesson plans. So one of my favorite ones is a classic experiment that is right here, but in this time we're using our ExoLab platform as a lab and also as a learning tool. So in this lesson, the objective is to recreate this classic lesson about the breath. I don't know if you heard about this experiment where you touch the breath first with your hands dirty, with hand sanitizer, with soap, and you have the control that no one touch it. So in this lesson, it is kind of the same, but instead of using the breath, we are using agar. That is included also in the kit. The agar is going to be placed into the Petri dishes, and we're going to have the controls right here. So the students are going to be observing and describing and taking anecdotal records of what is happening in one of them. And they are using the variables for them to see in the ExoLab how the bacteria is growing in the Petri dishes and what happened with the one that no one touched. So we are doing this experiment. Over here we have the visual instructions for the teachers to follow. And then in the end, with this configuration, you put the Petri dishes inside of the ExoLab. You let the bacteria to culture until probably 5 or from 5 to 10 days. So the students can see how the bacteria grows in the Petri dishes. And this is novel because sometimes whenever we used to do this experiment in the past, we used to see how the mold was growing, but we didn't see the process. We just left, for example, on Friday, and then on Monday, you have mold all over the place. But the students were not able to see little by little how the mold was forming. So with this ExoLab platform, now we can see and we can measure the temperature. You can even change the light and see if that affects the growth condition of the bacteria that is in our hands. So
and this is
one...
the kind of experiment that can really be done anytime. And so there'll be some schools that will be joining us right as the beginning of their school year as rocket launch is happening. And so if you don't have the time to do this at the beginning, that's fine. This is the kind of experiment that you can pull in at a different point. And even the older kids can do this kind of experiment. So there's different ways that you can use the ExoLab hardware beyond just the set experiment that we're doing on the ISS. It's great novelty.
And also there's another one for students to explore. This is a virtual reality lesson about going to the International Space Station. Sometimes for our students, the idea of going to space is very abstract. And this is a way for them to get bits and pieces of information and actually realize that there's an actual spaceship orbiting around our planet. And one of the most important things for the kindergarten is to work with tools, especially the science tools. And in space, we have a lot of tools, and this is a lesson about do a scavenger hunt on board the International Space Station and to differentiate the tools from the toys, because sometimes the small kids tend to play with the tools and not use them for the things that they were supposed to do. So this is for them to realize that there's tools all over the place, even in space, and we're going to be doing something with them. So this is kind of the learning experiences that they will going to have, and it will depend on the grade and level of the students. So they can just right here they can just draw and do some labeling, or they can actually do write some describing of how the tool is used. So this is some of the samples that we have in our platform. Now let me continue again with the presentation. And I think that's it.
Wonderful. That was a great demonstration of the elementary K-2 lessons and walking through how to do that with the younger ones who are just learning and getting used to working in a lab. And the great thing about this experiment is that it is so flexible and workable for any age group. And it's so surprising to me how students, whether 5 years old or 16-year-old, will say that they've never grown anything before. And we hear that through every mission. And coming, into this new school year where we're still trying to figure out the pandemic's reality, but so many of them were just doing distance learning last year. And so getting those seeds into the hands of kids to have their own plants growing was really important. And we know that's going to be another crucial part of that this year. There's a lesson on the platform specifically for the student lab setup. And so they can use a recyclable to set up their own, as well as and monitor what's happening. Use these great graphic organizers that Javier's created, and then our field journal pages to keep track of how their plants are changing day to day. And we know many families were excited about participating and watching those little plants grow too. So it's going to be an exciting time to launch this school year with a mission to space. And we're going to really have a mission for change this year as we get students excited about not only space exploration, but bringing change into their communities and finding ways to apply what we're doing into their own communities of how can we treat the earth better. Because we better do something, and we know that these kids are the bright young minds and creative thinkers that are going to help us solve some of these problems. And so hopefully through this scientific inquiry process, it'll really spur their passion and their curiosity. And we are empowering them with curiosity through this.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments before we wrap up this session?
Thank
I
you.
just
Yeah.
wanted to
Go ahead.
let
Sorry,
you know
Javier.
that this is the manual for the students, and it's bilingual. We have it in English as well and as in Spanish.
There we go. So Pedro was asking a little earlier if we had some bilingual or multilingual options. So you do have some of the tools that, thanks to Javier's great skills, that there's some materials in Spanish.
Yes.
Yeah, I very much appreciate that. And Javier, I just wanted to express how delighted I am to see how you have formulated many of these lessons to appeal to the younger learners. Last year, I had a homeschool version of it. I led our middle school cohort, full distance kids on the ExoLab platform or on the Magnitude platform. And this year, we're looking to expand and do 2 6th grade classrooms and also a library group. So we're looking to expand the footprint of Magnitude and ExoLab here in Maine in a significant way. And I think that the K-2 lessons that you've shown have really opened my eyes to some additional things that I can do that I hadn't even thought of. So for example, the touching of the bread, I go back and I remember how, yeah, we did that. But with the Petri dish, particularly in this climate where we have to be so aware of the cleanliness of our hands and the resulting consequences if we don't, I think that is a brilliant way to do that. And so I thank you for that, because I'll definitely be using that.
Sure. I'm glad. This was
Wonderful.
an awareness lesson about that, to be conscious of our environment and our health, that sometimes we don't wash our hands, and these are the consequences, if we don't do that.
And it really ties too with when you're going to do the ExoLab experiment, they may question, well, why do I have to wear gloves? Like, I just washed my hands, I just sanitized my hands. Yeah, well, that can make a difference too, because we know that if you get contaminants in your test tubes, that the plants will often not nodulate. They will sense an invader. And because chemical signaling is required in those roots to allow the bacteria to come in, the plant may say, no bueno, that's not happening at all because I sense that there is something pathogenic or something disease oriented or something that could harm me. While the rhizobia is there and that may be nice, I'm not going to let this other fungus or mold or bacteria in out of self-preservation. And so having those sterilization and cleanliness procedures in setting up any type of experiment, that is something that's so crucial to learn from even a young age as they're getting started. But definitely in this time of trying to resist and sharing germs. All right, well, any final
also,
comments?
you know, it doesn't matter the age of the students, as some of these lessons are also could be used to scaffold to new discoveries, because sometimes we don't know this where the students are coming from, or if they're behind in some of the concepts. These are the basic stepping stones in order for them to try to understand more elaborated curriculum or information. So these are good stepping stones to start with.
Especially at the beginning of this school year and over this last year, where they probably have lost some skills and haven't had enough practice of being together, working in a lab setting. And so this again will help them understand the value of working in teams and how to work in teams and how to do it in a safe way in a classroom environment. And to freshen up those skills is a good thing to do as well at the beginning of the school year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for being part of the session tonight. We went over the getting started with the platform and some Google integration, and then ended up with some implementation on how to work this with our youngest students of K-2 elementary. So I want to thank you for being here. And if there's any other PD sessions you've missed, we've got those shared on the platform in a lesson. Tony, anything to wrap us up?
Yes, actually, I do want to mention one other thing. I think Pedro will be interested in this. He, in the past, he had asked about the CANSET program, and he really wanted to extend that to the state of Maine. We are just starting to redo all the entire CANSET program. So that is coming, and I think some of the lessons will be new. Will really follow some sort of a sequence where your student will really benefit from it.
Mm-hmm. That's
so
terrific.
That's coming.
That's terrific.
Coming soon.
Yeah, that's terrific, Tony. I'm so excited to hear about that because, as you know, working with Blue Shift Aerospace, we're getting closer and closer to having true dedicated rocket launch facilities here in the state of Maine, and we're working very hard to make that happen. So it's almost like just a magical serendipity that's happening, right? We're going to have a delivery to polar orbits very, very soon here from Maine. Using biofuel, by the way, which is really important to us.
Awesome.
And you know, and this idea of having the student CANSATs from Magnitude aboard is just so exciting.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, awesome. Stay tuned. We're going to get our EXO lab experiment up onto the ISS, and then we're going to have opportunities to stay engaged throughout the school year. Using our EXO labs in other analog ground trials, designing the EXO Lab 10 experiment, and then getting into CANSAT with high altitude balloon launches, rocket launches. We've got a fun school year planned. And so we hope that all of you will continue to join us and stay engaged with us so that we can really bring this experiential learning to your students.
Yeah, sorry, I was doing a bunch of shipping and packing, so I was kind of busy, and I need to drop them all off before 5.
Oh yeah, so you gotta go.
yeah. So Pedro, do place put in your order, as soon as possible, so that we can get them in shipment out to you, so that you don't miss it. Yeah.
That sounds great, Tony.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. We have 121 students
Whoa, okay.
is our latest count. So good news all
Okay.
around. Thank you.
Yep. I think we do have plenty of supply now. We just got done with a bunch of student kits. So awesome.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks to all of you, and we'll sign off and stay curious and see you at the next PD sessions this week. Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.